Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Hashem, and Shai, Hashem, Harakah, Dash. Double honors unto the elder apostles, great also well. And Shalom to the hopeful elect. This is Paya Allah, and this is Esther 6th chapter, which reads, On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Big Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. All right. So continuing on from Esther's banquet. All right. But basically, you know, Haman believed he was in good case. Went back to his family bragging about how how big his house is and all the riches he had accumulated. But being one, thorn in his side, being Mordecai, that made him unhappy. All right. Really, this book is very deep, man, because it's brought about the high holy day, excuse me, of Purim, right? Lot, and basically, the ball was set in motion from the time that the lot was cast to determine a day in which the Israelites, Jude, Jude, the Jews, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, the Israelites left over during the time of the Medo-Persian Empire, all right, as far as the day when they'll be slain, and really showing you that the Most High had the hand, was the man behind them, behind the curtain, oh, word, behind the curtain that was basically controlling everything, all right, because it tells you in the book of Sirach about it says wickedness breaketh sleep, but the point is it says I forget. Yeah, watching care will not let a man slumber. All right. So they've been saying that the Most High had put on King Asheret's or King Xerxes' spirit, whereby he couldn't sleep. All right, and it's starting to showing you it feeds into that precept as well. Watching, he was watching his way as a king. All right, in terms of his duty of being a leader of the people, he was aware of it, and it was something that was ruminating in the back of his mind that made him say, let me see the works that I've done, because that's what kept him up, all right, as you can see from the action taken. But ultimately, it led to, and really, he was on point, because as we read on, we're going to see that this is something that where his life was saved, all right, but he never actually, what I was going to say, he never actually, rewarded Mordecai for delivering him from death. Verse 3. And the king said, What honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servant that ministered unto him, There is nothing done for him. Right, so there you go. That's the reason why you couldn't sleep. All right, and this really shows you, as I said, it was deep, because this man Haman has a disdain for Mordecai to the point where he wants to slew all of his people. But he should have really checked the records, because Mordecai was a just and honorable man, all right, as you say, the king. But, let's read on. So the king said, Who is in the court? Now Haman was coming to the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, Behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, Let him come in. All right. So this is Haman coming in hopes to hang Mordecai at the gallows. All right. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than myself to myself? Right. This man, he basically lifted up himself in pride and thought himself more than he ought to. All right, because he should have took the question on as face value for what it's worth. All right, as opposed to in a mindset of, this shows you his pride and his ego and his pump, self, being a lover of his own self, that he didn't really think about what was being said. All right, to what effect these things being said may do. All right, and Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let his this apparel and the horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor. All right. So this is what Haman said, and this is a very boastful. Well, as we read in the previous chapter, the way he boasted it to his family, all right, of his great honor and his riches and his household, really shows you the self-centered little man. And as well, even the thing that really stirred him up is the fact that of all the things that he has in great abundance, the one thing that led him down the path of destruction is his hate and disdain for Mordecai. And more so is because he didn't have no form of rule over him. He didn't bow before. It reminds me of the movie Revolver by Guy Ritchie, where you have I forget his name, Maka. Maka's the name of the individual, but it's played by Liotta. All right, he basically plays the character of a kingpin called Maka, and basically Jason Statham's character is called Jay Green. Funny enough, um, and Jacob Green. Um, and what happens is, the whole movie is about overcoming egos. One of those movies I watched when I first come into faith, and always stuck with me because it reflects very well on its truth, this walk that basically you have to. It's not about you; it's about the thing, all right? You don't serve, and when I say the thing, I mean whatever arbitrary, whatever situation that's placed in front of you. It's more about what are the parameters that are meant to be, you utilized in this situation. Like how, and really, God, when I'm saying, I'm talking about the laws, the wisdom of the Heavenly Father. All right. It's not about, okay, how do I get the best thing out of this situation? In some cases, yeah, you need to get the best situation um, to support your environment, to be more capable of doing different things. But most of all, you have to honor the situation in the most honorable way possible. So my point, and the reason why I'm saying that is because Jake Green's character, he basically was battling himself. It was a battle with himself, and within that battle, the main um the enemy, the main uh, excuse me, what was presented as the main enemy was Maka, but really it was how Maka made Jake Green feel. So he had to learn how to basically uh overcome, that feeling, all right, that sense of ego and pride. And that basically was, it's a good movie because it really just shows you a walk in faith because the two individuals that was mentoring him or guiding him, they were basically taking him through like systematically breaking him down, and to the point where the last hurrah, the last act that basically granted him freedom was the one where he dealt with Mecca. And now where Mecca wanted him to fear him, to bow before him, because the process that he got put through by his two guides basically ultimately led to like the symptom of or the side effect of it all was basically that Maka felt like Jake Green was systematically taking him apart. So it was messing with Maka's head to the point where it all comes to a head between the two of them. Maka was pointing a gun in his face and saying, "Fear me, fear me." And then you see the movie transitions at that point to show that the ego and pride, basically demons, the voices in Maka's head, had full and total dominion over him. Whereas Jake Green learned how to, quiet the voices in his head, right? So Heyman basically is like Maka in that sense because that's why it reminds me. Like he was upset in the fact that he didn't fear him, but then look, he could have been a just. But obviously he's wicked. He's an Edomite, all right. When you go into the history, the Agates are basically they go back to Greece and via they go back to Amalek via Greece, right? And the history is in the book of Maccabees, I believe. But the point being that even beyond that, that Haman ultimately, in saying all of this, really showed put his agenda on display because what he sought to really do was to actually take the king out of his place, all right, and put himself up in. So reading on verse 7, it says, "And Haman answered the king for the man whom the king delighted." Sorry, I've scrolled up. Verse 10, "Then the king said to Haman, Make haste and take the apparel and the horse as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken." All right, so do everything you said. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city. Can you imagine what that's like? All right, this man had to go through the process. He wandered into the court in hopes of seeing his enemy fall. All right, because he was stirred up with so much poison within himself. He said, "Nah, I have to go to the king's court at this moment," and it really shows you, you know, uh, draws a comparison as well. All right, um, one second. Outward court. So just want to check something. Bear me one moment. Okay, that's not the case, but it still uh bears some. It's funny because yeah, Haman basically just came there in hopes of slewing his enemy Mordecai, our forefather. But basically, he hastened to his own death. Basically, ran to his own death. All right, and even prior to him running hasten to his own death, he actually had a one last task he had to do in basically being humbled. All right, the Heavenly Father brought him to a great humiliation in that the man that he didn't respect or honor, the man that he sought honor from, honored him. All right, the man he sought to dishonor. So it went full circle. All right. So reading on, um, and Mordecai came again to the king's gate, uh, but Haman hastened to his house mourning and having his head covered. So more business as usual. And Haman told Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said this wife, then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai be the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. And this plays out as prophetic words. Right? The Spirit of the Lord was in the presence of that meeting, in that they spoke, they prophesied and cast his days upon the earth. Right? And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains and hastened to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared. So with that, I pray your